everybody. This is Linda with Bedtime Bible Chat. Well, today is Thursday, which means it's our last study for this week. I tell you, if the days go by any faster than this, I think I'll be 100 next week. But we knew that time would start flying, didn't we? Well, let's get into our lesson. It has a lot to do with what's going on in today's world, as has all of our lessons since we started this in 2014. You know, the reason that the Lord wanted me to do these lessons was because everybody was saying that the Old Testament was no longer relevant, that it was just a book of fairy tales and it had nothing for us in today's world. As we've studied book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, we have found the opposite to be true. The lessons that are in the Old Testament are very applicable easy for me to say, for today. We have seen that everything that happened back then is happening today. There is nothing new under the sun, as King Solomon said. Sorry about my voice. I don't know what happened to it. So anywho, we're going to continue our study in Proverbs 11. Let's go over there and look at it. And we're taking 3 verses today. Now, verse 12 could stand alone. However, we have taught that lesson several times recently. And I can put it into the lesson of verses 10 and 11 because it will fit there as well. For the sake of shining a new light on that verse, that's what I'm going to do. All right. Proverbs 11, verse 10. When it goeth well with the righteous, the city rejoiceth, and when the wicked perish, there is shouting. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. Verse 12. He that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace. Well, let's get over here and do some follow-up Bible verses to show what they're saying. Romans 12:17 through 18. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. In verse 21, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. All right, let's look at that. I want to start with verse 12 first because I'll forget what I want to say about that if I don't do it while it's on my mind. In this verse, this comes from the Hebrew term B-U-W-Z, booze, something, which implies contempt or a sneering form of spite, snide, derogatory attitudes towards other people cause friction and hard feelings. Now that you understand what this is talking about, when I couple it with 10 and 11, you'll see why. You know, when the righteous are the ones with money and power, things go really well for the country, for the people. there is no lying and no stealing and no deception, no killing, all that stuff. So, with the righteous being the leaders, the country does well. But when the wicked are the leaders, as we see that probably since the beginning of this country, if the truth be known, whenever you put a human being in charge of something, power goes to their head and then the evil comes in. But we are seeing much more of that in the last few years. Evil just grows like a cancer. And we've been seeing that when wicked is in charge of the people. And as we know, no matter who you vote for, they're going to be wicked. We live in a fallen world. We're all prone to sin. We're all a target for Satan. And some people are weak enough to allow Satan to control them. Now, I know that there's a lot of presidential campaigning going on. And yesterday, the Trump on CNN with the town hall meeting. Oh, good heavens. Oh, my word. Verse 12 was exactly what the host of that town hall meeting emulated. I won't get into the specifics. It's just after about 40 minutes, I couldn't take any more. My nerves were shot. And you know I'm not pro-Trump. And, but I'm pro-truth. And I just couldn't stand to see how she was carrying on. But this is how this verse 12 is what it's talking about. There was a time when you would have a presidential candidate come on. They would ask questions about what his plans were if he were to win the presidency. But not anymore. It's to degrade, defame, assault the one they don't want as president. When you go on CNN and you're a Republican, you are not going to get a fair shake. And that's what we saw last night. She kept asking questions about the 2020 election and why he has to keep saying that it was stolen. And then later they complained that all he wanted to talk about was the stolen election. Well, stop asking him questions about it. But this is what we're looking at in these verses. Let's go back over there and look at the verse. How it says in verse 12, he that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor. You could see despise in her eyes. She was reeking despise. She was reeking hate. And her questions and her attitude was that hate and despise. But a man of understanding holdeth his peace. Now, I gotta say, Trump is a better man than me because I wouldn't have sit there and took her mess. But he took it with peace until finally, and I had to laugh at this. Finally, he said to her he'd had enough. You're a nasty person. You know what? I almost decided to vote for Trump after that. I ain't voting at all, but I just like, wow, that was a good one, Trump. I'd have been gone after the first question because I could see how the night was going to go. And it wasn't going to be in his favor at all. It wasn't even going to be middle of the road. It wasn't going to be like the good old days where they would just ask pertinent questions, not delve into the past. Just ask, what are you going to do about the economy? What are you going to do about this and that? Things that are important to the people now and tomorrow. But she had to delve too much into the past. But this is what this verse is talking about, verse 12. And when you have a righteous leader, things go well. I can't think back far enough, I guess. The leaders have never been righteous. Of course, back in my day, we didn't have the internet and all that to be able to know that our leaders weren't righteous. We thought Reagan was the cream of the crop. And he was good, don't get me wrong, but he had his problems too. We thought Kennedy, and he was a Democrat, and we thought Kennedy was Camelot. Well, now we find out a lot about him, and we found out how he met his end too. The stories they told us were all lies. You can go all the way back in time and you'll find out that none of the leaders were righteous. So that's why we've had wars. That's why we've had economic problems. That's why we had financial problems, the Dust Bowl, all of that. Because we don't have a righteous leader. If you go back in the days of the Old Testament, there were only 9 righteous leaders of Judea and Israel. Israel had none. Judea had 9. And when they had those righteous leaders, the country did wonderful. All of their enemies were defeated. They became rich. The people were happy. But then when they started to delve into idolatry, then the Lord opened the gates of letting their enemies defeat them and letting famine come in and everything. So you see, we can't expect to have a peaceful life as long as wicked people are our leaders. And if you're voting for a saint, I'm sorry, but there aren't any saints on this earth. You just aren't going to find a righteous person anymore that wants to be in politics, because righteous people are smart. They know that they'd be getting into a horrible snake pit, and they don't want no part of that. So you have nothing but the unrighteous leading us. And because of that, we have to reap the judgment. Look at us. We are falling apart. We're being invaded as of today by millions of illegal immigrants. What is in them? Who knows? It could be some of our enemies. It could be diseases. It could be child trafficking. Could be sex trafficking. Could be fentanyl. Could be all kinds of bad stuff. I find it strange that these people that are leaving their countries and supposedly walking hundreds, if not thousands of miles to get here are so well dressed. They dress better than I do. They've got smartphones. They got name brand tennis shoes. That's interesting. and they're leaving their country to come here. They're jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. We are no different from what they're leaving. They'll get here and find that out the hard way, and then they're stuck. Unfortunately, I have to say that because it's the truth. We aren't as extreme yet, but with all the different factions coming in here, we will be. Trust me. And that's what's frightening. Because, there have been 200 mass shootings this year. How many more is going to happen with all of this? I don't know who these people are coming in here. Those gangs down there, what are they, MS-13, M something 13, I don't know. They're horrible. They're worse than any gang we've got here. And they're here already, and they are bad. So, when you've got a righteous leader, none of this stuff happens. But when you have a wicked leader, all of this stuff happens in spades. And what we're seeing right now proves these 3 verses to a T. So there's nothing new under the sun. This has been going on forever. The same thing happened back in biblical times. The kings, they were just as evil could be. But when you had a righteous king, everything went beautifully. We won't get another righteous king until Jesus returns. And in the millennial reign, we will finally be ruled by a righteous ruler. And everything will be wonderful. So wonderful. So I am looking for that day because I am wore out. I am wore out with all this stuff that's going on. I'm not like you. I can't just opt out of reading the news or watching the news. I've got to do the news, so I have to know what's going on. And it's about to drive me out of my mind. I've given Jamie a lot of the responsibility now because I just can't handle it anymore. And he could care less. He finds it funny the way the left handles things. He has a whole different attitude about it. Me, I take it personal. I have feelings for the people that they're harming. And that really works on my heart. I just love people that they're harming, and I can't handle that. So, the lesson here is if you want peace and tranquility, the only way you're going to get it is when Jesus returns. That's the only way. We are in the end times, and it is only going to get worse and worse. So that's our lesson today. If you're like me and you can't take all this mess, it's just getting on your last nerve, then you're going to have to be like me and commune with the Lord a lot. Because that's where we get our peace and tranquility. Until he returns and rules with the rod of iron. But for now, the only place we're going to find it is when we commune with the Lord. So that's where we are today, guys. Peace and tranquility. Say goodbye until Jesus returns. All right, guys, there you have it. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I hope I can go out and buy some flowers. I hope. Jamie has to take the car down to transmission place. There is a noise coming out. My son is insisting on me taking it down there, and I think he's going to pay for it. I don't know. Depends on how much it is. It may be an easy fix and only be a small amount. But if it's a bad fix, then I'm sure my son ain't going to be able to afford it. But he wants me to take it down just to find out. And so Jamie's going to do that. And then I want to go to Lowe's and buy some flowers. I need some cheering up. I need to get out there in my special place for me and Jesus and start planting flowers and talking to the Lord and forgetting all this mess. So y'all have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday on Bedtime Bible Chat, if the Lord's willing and if we haven't gone home by then. All right, bye-bye.